Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spiral Out, the podcast where we talk about music and movies, merch and memorabilia, art and artists, collectors and their collections. And we also talk about the Toolverse and Tool, and posters, stuff. On this week's episode, we have Nate Hill, who did the artwork that is on the Omaha poster, an artist from Melbourne, Australia, who's doing some very, very cool NFTs. We talk about a lot of different pieces of his art. So if you want to see those, please go on the Instagram page or the Facebook page for the podcast at Spiral Out Pod and check those out while you're listening to the episode. Thank you for listening. Spiral Out. All right, everybody. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spiral Out Podcast. On today's episode, we have Nate Hill. How you doing, Nate?
Hi. How you going?
Good. Nate Hill, you're in Melbourne, Australia.
Yes, I am. Been my home most of my life. Closer to the city now than when I started out. I started out in a country town.
Oh, wow. And for everybody listening, he did the artwork that is on the Omaha poster. Do you have a name for that piece of work? I know you did it. There's some type of collaboration with another artist, but do you guys have a name for that specific piece?
Oh, the name for this particular piece? It's called Gluttony, I think. It was actually part of a series of pieces that I created with Tim Maxwell, who goes by Maxwell Inked on Instagram and Twitter. And we've become friends just via the internet, via the social media platforms. And we create monochrome art. Both of us deal heavily in lines. Tim's are hand-drawn and mine are digitally generated. We've collaborated a bunch of times now and started making series together. So this is part of a greater series, this particular piece.
Yeah, I've seen a few of them that you guys have done together, and I kind of looked up a little of Tim's art and a bunch of yours. So you say you mainly do, or it's 100% digital?
My stuff is interesting in that I create a lot of my work. I would say probably near 90% of my work is all based around photography, photos that I take, and then they're heavily manipulated. So they start out as one thing and end up as something else with my work. But it is all digitally sort of manipulated, whereas Tim's is a very analog, literally pen and paper process until he scans them to get them, onto Instagram and the like.
So before we get into, I really want to know how you create your art. And again, I've went through your NFTs and hit some of the NFT sites to look at your stuff, and I've looked through your website. But I kind of want to get the tool. Everybody always wants to know what was it like getting the call from Adam or getting the message from Adam. So can you tell us your experience with how your poster was picked and all that tool madness?
Yep, for sure. For me personally, it was a little bit secondary because Adam messaged Tim on Instagram. So Adam does follow both of us, and I've had some very, very brief interactions with Adam on Instagram, which has been amazing. But Tim got the initial call. He got in touch with me, and then after, sort of pinching myself and figuring out, is this actually real, we then were put in touch with management who worked the details of, working this poster. It was very exciting, and I must admit, I did think that I was being pranked, that this couldn't possibly be real, creating something with tools. So it was pretty amazing.
That would be a terrible prank. It would be a pretty very specific prank. Hey, Adam, did he know? Were you a Tool fan before this?
Yes, absolutely a Tool fan. Massive. I'm a drummer myself, so massive Danny Carey fan, and followed Tool. I've grown up with them basically.
I'm a huge Danny Carey fan too. That's what hooked me. I'm a drummer as well. So in high school, that guy was like God.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you.
I was lucky enough to stand next to him one time for a picture. I wouldn't say I full on met him, but he shook my hand and stood next to me for a photo, and it was a big day.
Yes, I've got no doubt. That's really cool. Is he a big, tall man?
You know what's funny? Everybody asks me that after I tell them. So I'm about 5'11", 6 feet, and he's maybe an inch or two taller than me. So
he's just got such a huge presence, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of picture him as being a big man.
Like in your brain, you're like, he must be 7 feet tall.
Yeah, totally.
But no, he's normal size, I guess. I mean, he's a little bit taller than average. So Adam Jones calls you and Tim or messages you guys, and you figure out that it's not a very, very specific prank and completely catered to you. What happens next? Do you guys make this piece of art for Tool, or do you go through your portfolio?
They actually reached out asking for this piece specifically. That made our life very easy because obviously we had already had the piece there, and then it just needed to be worked into, the correct dimensions for printing the poster. So it was a very easy process on our end, having done all the work and Tool, Adam asking for the piece specifically was really nice.
Did he tell you why he picked that one specifically?
Not to me. I would have to. I didn't ask him that. I really should have asked him that. It does have. I'm sure, as a Tool fan yourself, it does have that kind of geometry vibe that you find running through Tool artwork. So it made sense to me when they pointed out that particular piece. That it looked like something that they would go for. But I don't know if there was a deeper reason.
So once your poster was released, how did you see it? How did you know when it was released?
The very exciting way that we, were notified was that Adam Jones put his story up and tagged away. So, and as you would well know, Tool fans are very into all of this stuff. So immediately there are Tool poster Instagram accounts that are tagging away, and it all happened in a rush, and it was very exciting actually once we'd heard what show it was and that it was all released and out there. It was very exciting.
Did they offer you any free tickets?
No. So I can't speak for Tim, but me being in Melbourne, Australia, it was not an option for me. But I will say, go on the record and say that the management that we dealt with via email have been fantastic. They've been really, really great and easy to work with and responsive to Tim and myself. So the whole process has been fantastic.
Did your inbox explode after the poster was released? Or I'm guessing your inbox already explodes.
I have a very busy inbox, and people are very forthright on DMs in Instagram and Twitter as well. So I've had a lot of messages, and Tim has too. We talked about it. There's been a lot of messages, and continues to be just the occasional people poking their head in saying any release date yet. So it's.
I'm surprised I got through.
It's something that I've set myself to do, is to be very responsive via my social media. Sometimes stuff can slip through, but generally I would like to say and think that I get back to pretty much everyone.
That's extremely nice of you. Have you seen Tool live?
I have not.
Oh, you got to do it, my friend.
Yeah, I know I do. I absolutely know I do. I made a critical error last time they were in Melbourne, Australia. And so, because I'm a photographer and I apply and shoot shows through publications, I did not buy a ticket when they came out, hoping that I would be able to shoot the show for a publication, and I missed out. I will not be making that mistake again, I can tell you that.
And remind me again what the name of that one? I want to write it down.
The piece is called Gluttony, Temperance, too, because it was part of a 7-piece series that we did on the Deadly Seven Deadly Sins. I want to say it's gluttony.
That makes it a little bit more curious for me.
Because it's part of a series and because of the name.
Because of the name.
Yeah, it is. No, I'll pay that. It is an interesting one. Yeah, it is gluttony, and in brackets, temperance.
I appreciate that. Is there a reason why it's called gluttony? I know you said it's based. You had a series based on the 7 deadly sins. I'm trying to figure out what is gluttonous about this piece specifically.
We were just had it in mind to base this series around the 7 deadly sins. To take it back a little step further, this was a series of NFTs actually that Tim and I released as a pack of 7 that people could purchase, and when you made a purchase, you got a random piece out of the 7 pieces, and we had 7 pieces there. We sort of came up with this theme. We just went with our gut, with what we felt like each image might represent. I'd love to say it's something deeper than that, but it was more running with a theme and going with a feeling with which of the 7 pieces represented each of the different 7 sins.
I get it. I like it.
Cool.
And I think people listening, or now that they hear that, they may apply their own interpretation of why that is called gluttonous, because I don't know if you know this, when I do the podcast, there are a bunch of Tool Facebook group pages that I'm on. I don't know if you've visited any of them, but I posted your poster and asked people to tell me what their interpretation of this piece of art is. I got, dozen or so different interpretations. There was a baseline theme to most of them, and I'm curious if you're curious. Do you want to know what any of those are?
I'm always curious, and I would say that it's something that I do love about creating art, and not necessarily telling people a personal meaning behind a piece. I do love the fact that everyone can have their own interpretation and put their own story onto a piece. So it's actually something that I thoroughly enjoy, and I don't mind sometimes being very ambiguous about, what a piece is about.
So you don't want to tell me what this piece is about?
No, it's not that. I'm genuinely being honest with you when I say we were basing our decisions around a gut feeling about which image would go with which sin in this particular case. So
no, I completely understand the gluttony part, but while actually creating it and after you've created it, did you have a specific thing other than gluttony? We can throw the gluttony thing out. I mean, but I'm more curious on what your personal thought of how you were feeling and stuff.
No, I get where you're coming from. I think for me, a lot of the pieces that I create that have if you've had a look, a high percentage of them have a little figure, a lone figure in them. And so for me, a lot of it is about just exploration. So whether it's creating a new planet or, place for people to visit, or some kind of journey that this little figure is on, that's a huge part of it for me. And then I like the viewer to have their own spin on that story, or, the viewer of the art could, place themselves in the position of that little figure and work out what the story is, why they're there. So that's a little general part of it for me. And there are pieces that have deeper meaning for me personally. Often that's my starting place, is a sense of exploration of a place that's different.
So the main theme that I got from people that I've asked online is that it's two things: either a guy a being who has just been through a struggle and is now seen a more clearer path.
Yep.
Or else kind of the opposite, where no matter where I go, this distortion follows me.
I like both of those, both of those descriptions, and I can definitely see where both of those would come from. So that definitely makes sense to me.
I got one question about the figure. I guess two questions, because I did look at a lot of your art, and I see the being. One, is that silhouette something you've taken a picture of and manipulated?
It is a 3D figure that I have created.
So you created it from scratch? Oh, because I for some reason I was like, that's a GI Joe that he took a picture of, and and is now taken out all the color and made a silhouette and is in all of his artwork.
I love that. That's cool. Initially, when I started creating art, photographic art or digital art, I did put myself into a lot of photo manipulations. I would composite a photo of myself in. Yeah, I turned to this 3D figure a while ago now, just as something that I could use as that being. That it's a lot more. It's better workflow for me to be able to use this 3D figure, and I can use it in a bunch of ways. I can place it in and have it, be part of a scene. I can texture it. There's a lot more things that I can do with this particular figure the way it is, the way I have it now.
So I have one last tool related question.
You can ask as many as you like.
I think I only have one left. I'm just kidding. Do you have to split the prints, or you got again? You don't have to tell me the answer. If I try to keep any money stuff out of my podcast, but do you have to split your artist prints, or are you going to split the profit?
Tim and I have become good, close friends. So I'm selling all of the prints. I'm doing that from my end, but we are splitting everything 50-50. Always have, always will.
And the only reason I'm asking that is because if I understand correctly with the research that I've done on my side, you're the only duo on a poster.
Yeah, I believe so too. I don't quote me on that. I haven't done research, but from what I saw, I think we are the only duo.
I really would like to get into how you physically or digitally created these images, because you say you work with photography, and I'm very curious on how you get these lines and these I guess they're like plains, but they're not plains, almost like mountainous regions of they look like sound waves sometimes. How'd you do it?
Yeah. Well, I may disappoint you a little bit here.
Oh, it's a secret.
I don't want to give away too much.
Fair enough.
One of the main reasons for that is I do get asked, I'd say, multiple times weekly on how to make these things. And I've had bad experiences in the past with sharing too much and then people running with it and it becoming a bit of a beast for someone else as opposed to something that I've created. If that makes sense.
I don't blame you one bit, my friend. Art and music and anything creative is excuse my language, tricky motherfucker.
No, it definitely can be. I have a cautionary tale from a friend of mine too that created a visual identity of his own that was very unique, and he shared how to do it, and then it became something that everyone could do, and you would see major brands doing this thing that a friend of mine created, and he's getting no sort of recognition or, work out of it. So it's something that's really hard in this industry because my natural instinct would be actually to just tell you everything about how I make these things. But it's just something that I've, become a little bit more protective of, if you like, since it's something that people strongly identify to me is these line landscapes. So I will say, like I mentioned before, they do start out as photos and then they're heavily manipulated into lines. I use a bunch of apps and programs. I'm an Apple iPhone and Mac user. So I use iOS apps and programs on my Mac to get from a photo to the point that you see with these digital lines.
The last question I'll ask with the actual creation of one of these, are you taking the pictures with your phone?
50-50 perhaps with that. I started out as a photographer, landscape photographer and portrait photographer. That was my first sort of love, if you like, with the visual creative media. So I do have a fantastically awesome series set of DSLR cameras, and they do go everywhere with me. But I do, just out of sheer ease, use the iPhone from time to time as well.
That's awesome. We have another thing in common. I started out in photography as well, and
oh, cool.
And that medium. And what's funny is while starting this podcast, I've talked to a few. I'm relatively new to art. I've never, especially visual art, other than photography. I never really manipulated any photos. I did like wedding photography and portrait photography and product photography, and I made short films. But from talking to artists, I'm starting to experiment, and I know I'm going to go the photography route first. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I know I'm going to start with pictures, like photography pictures.
Oh, I love that. And there is so much that you can do with them. So what I would recommend, if you like, is fiddling around with some apps on it. I don't know if you have an iPad or a tablet of some sort. I would recommend just getting some glitch apps or getting some photo editing apps and just fiddle around. I think you can go so many places with starting with just photography. So that's definitely how I started out and ended up in a very different place, as you can see. But there's heaps you can do. So highly recommend.
So since you mentioned where you started out, I may be wrong on this, and I'll edit it out if I am wrong, but you were a teacher.
I was a teacher for a very long time, but I was actually a teacher of drums, of anything visual.
So you're just teaching kids how to do their rudiments and their time signatures?
In schools, I would go in school and do one-on-one or sometimes group drum classes and take them from beginner to as far as I could take them. I had some drummers actually go on to be in some pretty, I'd say reasonably famous bands. Kind of cool. So, taught them how to be a rock drummer, if you like.
So then explain to me how it switched, how you went from teaching them to do 7/8 time signatures to creating this little figure that is, in my opinion, melancholy, standing around in different wavelengths.
Yeah, the lonely little guy. The switch was all based around when my wife and I had our daughter. She came along and I was to be the stay-at-home parent, and my wife went back to work after a short while. And so while I was being the stay-at-home dad, I had my camera everywhere, taking a lot of photos of my daughter and various other things. Sort of worked my way semi-accidentally into portrait photography. So this was a revisiting of photography. I studied photography at university, went away from that to be in bands and teach drums, and then sort of came back to it once we had our daughter. The photography thing happened when our daughter came along. I started doing portraiture stuff just as a side hustle, if you want to call it that. Once I started working with bands with photography, I started messing around with the idea of doing posters or, just other little slightly more creative things than just a portrait shot. And this was around about the time of Instagram in its infancy. So I started following other artists and then finding graphic artists and then sort of snowballed on from there, just experimenting with things while I had time being at home with my daughter.
What were some of the bands that you were taking pictures of there in the beginning? Just local stuff, or?
Being from Melbourne, there was a lot of local bands. There's a couple of bands. There was a lot of post-rock bands, actually. I've sort of found myself, drawn to and gravitating towards that kind of music and working with those bands. So there's a band called We Lost the Sea I've worked with, a band called 14 Nights at Sea, Sleep Makes Waves. There's a bunch of Aussie bands that I've worked with that some of your listeners, I don't know whether they will have heard of them or not, but worth looking up the names that I just said there. Oh, and another Aussie band called Cog, who have been a reasonably known band over here too.
You're experimenting with photos. You're taking band pictures, live sets. You're experimenting with those. Again, just from my little bit of research, and I feel like the big break was the Twisted Life NFTs.
Yes. So Twisted Landscapes is what I call them. Actually, pre-NFT, they were huge for me as well. I did a solo exhibition based around the Twisted Landscapes, and again, they are my own photography that are heavily manipulated into these twisted worlds. I got kind of noticed on social media when I started sharing those ones. So that's a big boost came when the Photoshop account shared my work. I got featured on a bunch of fairly high-profile sites, if you like, and blogs started sharing a lot of my images. So I had a sort of a little rapid rise in my following on Instagram after starting to share those particular images. So then I went on to do solo exhibition, as I said, and then, just 2 years ago, just under 2 years ago, the NFT thing happened for me, and I had a massive drop with the Twisted Landscapes on a platform called Nifty Gateway, and that was huge, a bit of a life-changing moment for me.
How life-changing, if you don't mind me asking?
Hey, you can ask. I won't give you numbers, but I will say that we bought a house.
Oh, fair enough. that is life-changing.
Anytime I talk about it, I still kind of have to pinch myself. Can't believe that, there was that level of interest and support in what I do, and that support came, in a monetary form as well, which is pretty incredible.
And those were the Twisted Landscapes that broke the first, right? Is that that's what we were saying?
Correct. Yep.
So when did this universe start with the lonely figure? Well, do you have a name for him?
I don't have a name for him. I've been asked that before. I just call him my guy.
Okay. So
my little guy.
So it's funny is you're the third artist I've interviewed, and each one of them had something they didn't name.
Yeah.
And I've asked, I have to do it again. Can I name it? You don't have to keep it.
Look, honestly, I'd love to hear your name.
Thank you.
For my little guy. I don't know if I don't know if I'd carry it forward.
Fair enough.
What would you name my?
For some reason, I would name him Rupert.
Rupert. I like it.
Try not to get that out of your brain now, my friend.
He might forever in private now be known as Rupert.
So when did that universe, when was that created? Again, I get you were experimenting with things, and I'm sure on some level you fell into it and kind of, oh wow, this is awesome, look what I just created, and rolled with it on some level, I'm sure. But when was that transition where you're like, I'm going this way?
Good question. I'm not sure I can give you a date on that. It's been quite a long time. I can tell you though that when I started heavily manipulating my photos, I came across these Twisted Landscapes, and I started making them with my landscape photography, and didn't have the little man in them, and they didn't write with me for some reason. They seemed too abstract. I was just fiddling around with some silhouettes and with photos of myself, and just trying to turn them into something that felt a little bit like, I don't want to say real because obviously they're not, but that felt a little bit more plausible, that gave the landscape a bit of meaning and scale and a story. And so putting photos of myself in there, or silhouette that I'd cut out from something else, or then I started to fiddle around with some 3D stuff, on a very, very basic level. I'm still by no means a 3D artist at all. It felt right to me. The little guy in there felt right, and it felt like there was a story to tell now, that this little guy was discovering these twisted planets. So it's been a long time To make a long answer a little bit shorter, I've been doing it for, I would say, at a really rough, quick guess, about 7 or 8 years.
That is a long time.
Yeah.
Do you do the Twisted Life stuff and Rupert's universe simultaneously?
Yeah. So that was when I discovered Rupert. Was when I started making the Twisted Landscape. So I have been creating those for that length of time, for a long time.
I told you it's going to catch on, man. Do you have a name for the dimension itself? Because it seems like it's not Earth. I don't know where it is. It could be anywhere, but do you have a name that you call it?
I don't. So again, I just call them Twisted Landscapes. And again, that is intentional in not having a name for it, because back to what we were talking about earlier, I do like the idea of people putting their own story into these. I do have some Twisted Landscapes that have a lot of meaning to me because of the original landscape photo and where it was taken. When I'm creating a piece too, I often have music playing, and I will create to a mood, or there might be something going on in my life that I want to express visually, and I feel like that can come through in my work sometimes too, within these landscapes. So there are definitely things that I intentionally do with them that may not always be apparent, but yeah, I never really wanted to have it as a place with a name. I'd rather people go there and figure out their own way, if you like.
I dig it. For some reason, I always appreciate when artists, whether it be music and visual in movies, don't give it away. Again, I think I say this on every single episode of my podcast, but I don't like to look up lyrics because I don't want somebody else to tell me how to feel about a song or a piece of art or something like that. It just, because then it loses its connection to what I've attached it to myself.
Yep, could not agree more. Absolutely, hugely important thing for me is that someone can connect with something that I create in their own way. I just think that's amazing. I've had plenty of people message me over the journey and tell me what a particular piece did for them, or how they reacted, and I love it every time. And I don't feel like you would get that as much if you were telling people expressly what this piece means.
Yeah, it would seem a little rigid, and you might get angry too if somebody was like, "Hey, this is what I feel like this painting is," and every time you're like, "No, that's my cat's birthday. That's what that painting means," and just getting irritated every time.
Yeah. Well, it probably could. Yeah. I just love that there can be so many different interpretations. That's something that I value.
I've noticed while researching you that you do quite a bit of different collaborations with a lot of different artists, especially in the NFT stuff. Or is it specific? I don't know a lot about NFTs. That's a question I'm going to ask you in a little bit. But you do a lot of collaborations. What's the experience like working with somebody else and working with just yourself?
I love it, and it came about for me in the early days of Instagram, again, when I was just sort of discovering all of this, manipulated digital art. There was a bit of a community that formed around editing photos and, collaborating with each other. And so that's where it started for me, and I just love it. I love that you can connect with someone on the other side of the globe that's very obviously, well, not obviously, but is likely to be very different to you. You can connect through art, and you can take a piece that, perhaps I started a piece and I send it off to someone else, and they can take it to a place that you never would have yourself. Personally, I have very rarely, if ever, had a collaboration that just hasn't worked and I haven't liked the outcome, and it was, felt like it wasn't worth the time. I pretty much always have found that it's been a great experience and well worth, working with other people and forming, sounds a little cheesy, but forming friendships, through doing something like this. I feel like I know a whole bunch of people that I've never actually met in person just because I've collaborated with them and done this creative thing. So it's something that I thoroughly enjoy. These days, I'm probably doing just as many collaborations as I am my own personal pieces on my own. It's something that I can't see myself stopping anytime soon.
And nor should you if you're having fun, right?
Yeah. No, enjoying it. It seems to be working. The other thing that I do like about it, I will say, is that this is a little bit more from the professional point of view, I guess, is that both the parties involved in collaborating are sharing an audience too. So you might increase your audience by collaborating with someone else, and they are too. So it seems to be mutually beneficial on that front as well. So there's kind of a lot of reasons for me that I like it and will continue to do it.
And just from you explaining that, I'm starting to see, I'm starting to like resonate just with the fans that enjoy your art, you know, and me doing the podcast. We have to have some shared interest in doing this, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And same with, you know, I've made a ton of friends just because we all like Tool, and we all like art, and we all like posters.
Yeah.
It's one of my new favorite things. I was not a social media guy up until pretty much I started doing this. Now, all of a sudden, you know, I'm talking to an artist in Australia. I'm talking to a collector in Florida, another fan in Detroit. It's wild, right?
Yeah, it is wild. And I love that. I absolutely love it. And just to follow on from that, for me, I'm planning a trip to New York this year, which is where Tim is from, who I collaborated on the Tool poster, and we're going to catch up, which I just think is amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. So it really does, you know, broaden things for you globally doing things like this.
You know what I think you guys should do when you meet up?
What should we do?
You should make him do something digital and you do something hand-drawn.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. I would say we may well do that. That would be fun. He can teach me his amazing ways of holding a pen steady and doing these amazing lines.
And you can not show him how you do what you do.
I'd be able to show him something. I trust him. We could work something out.
I got two questions about collaborating. One.
Yep.
Does it ever change your view? Like, again, you don't share your personal perceptions of your own art, which we've talked about and I respect, but does it, working with somebody, ever change that perception? You give them something and you get it back, and maybe there was a somber feeling and now all of a sudden they added something and it's this bright, light thing now? Yeah,
it does actually. And it's funny you should say bright and light, because I have a collaboration that's going to be an NFT that's coming out very soon, actually. I collaborated with an artist who goes by the name of Young and Sick. He does these really brightly coloured animations, illustrations, I should say, rather, of these wild and crazy figures that he illustrates. And it's really colourful and very extremely different to what I do. But we've collaborated on a piece and I absolutely love it. And it does change the feel of my work. It's still got my landscape lines in it, and I still put together the composition, but it's definitely very, very different, and I love that about it. So I love that it's taken my work to a different place.
Does working with different artists make you want to experiment more?
Absolutely, without question. And it's definitely pushed me as an artist. And in those early days, I think that's one of the things that I liked about it the most, was that it pushed me in directions that I would probably not have taken myself. It introduced me to new techniques and programs and apps and whatever. So definitely it has helped me as an artist a great deal working with other artists.
While talking to you now, there seems like there's obviously a very tight-knit but expansive NFT universe of not just NFTs themselves, but the artists doing them. Can you just kind of touch on maybe somebody that has no idea what an NFT is? And maybe that somebody is me. I have a vague understanding of what it is, but I could use some clarity.
Yeah, sure thing. So even down to, NFT itself stands for non-fungible token. What is going on with an artist selling an NFT is that the artist has an image, a digital image, and they do a process that is called minting. You mint a piece of art. And what that does is it creates a token that is on the blockchain, and there are different blockchains, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. I'm again, I have a vague understanding of some of this, so I get where you're going.
Yep, cool. And so once you mint a piece and create a token, the token is the thing that holds the value. So when someone is buying an NFT, they are buying a token that has an image that represents that token. And that image is the art that the artist has created. And one of the ways that I've had it explained to me is that buying an NFT, you are investing in an artist, and it's almost like, it's sort of akin to a stock. So you are betting on that artist continuing their career as an artist and hopefully increasing the value in their work. So that's kind of a really basic, quick rundown of like why a digital artist would mint and create an NFT. Is that they're selling their work and hopefully having people invest in it. And those investors are hoping that that artist continues their career and increases the value on that token.
So
Does that make sense?
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, totally. That was perfect.
Cool.
So when somebody buys one of your NFTs, they own that image?
They own that token. So there is a big difference. So I don't actually relinquish any rights to my images. There are NFTs, there are circumstances where you could write it into a contract that you then give away the rights to the image, but I don't do that. So I've seen an artist give away, rights to the image so that it can be used for commercial purposes in their NFTs, but I don't do that. So that's not my way is the more common way, if you like. So generally, most NFTs that you see from artists the artist will retain the rights to their image.
And this might be a dumb question. So when they buy the NFT, they get the token. I understand it's kind of like a stock. Do they get? Yep. Can they do anything with that image? Obviously, they don't have rights, so I'm guessing no. The image is just representing the token.
Correct. What I have done in the past is I have offered prints of the image that people have purchased as an NFT. You don't have to do that, but I have done that because I like the idea of a physical product when someone has, supported me in that fashion and bought an image of mine. But as a general rule, no, a purchaser of an NFT can't do anything with that image unless expressly, put in the contract.
I really appreciate you giving me a quick schooling on NFTs, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that they're going to have a lot more clarity.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure, and it is something, having got into it relatively early in the life of NFTs. I've been doing it for almost a year and a half. I do get asked about it a lot. So it is one of those things that I think it is becoming a little bit more into, public consciousness. But there is still there's a lot I don't know about NFTs, but there's a lot to learn, and a lot of people kind of are curious about it. So I'm always happy to talk about it.
Do you put any secret stuff in your NFTs? Because I've heard that, and again, this could be rumor, but I heard there was a specific NFT that was, $500,000, right? And it really wasn't that image that they were getting after. Again, I think it has something to do like what you said with this token, but you got like a QR code that was attached to a Discord. And on this Discord, it was like Snoop Dogg, Kanye, Martha Stewart. And then it's just like a group Discord that you got to now chat with these extremely famous people. So I'm just curious, do you ever attach something like that to your NFTs, something secret, something special?
I haven't done much of that yet. I've done prints, like I said, and I have also done one NFT where, actually, no, I've done this multiple times, where if you purchase one, you'll get another benefit, whether it be being airdropped or gifted a separate NFT or something along those lines. So I haven't hidden anything in there, but I have had a little bit of play around with sort of gamifying how I release NFTs. Like, if you collect 4, you'll get a fifth one for 3, and those kind of things I've sort of started to play around with. I do have a friend artist who hid another NFT inside one of his NFTs. There's all sorts of things you can do with these contracts and these tokens that you create. So I haven't got super creative with that yet, but I definitely know of artists that have, and there is plenty that I think we're only scratching the surface as to what you can do with it all.
I agree. How many of your NFTs are moving images? Are all of them or just some of them?
No, not all of them. I would say it's probably pretty close to 50-50 stills and moving ones. So animating images is actually a relatively new thing for me. So when I got into the NFT space and saw that there was a lot more of that kind of thing, it's sort of provoked me to, bring something new to what I do. So, yeah, as far as NFTs go, I would say it's roughly 50-50 animated and still.
Cool. So you said you previously have done artwork with, you did pictures with bands. I've seen recently, though, you did some album art for the Crystal Method, and you also did that pretty awesome photo for the Korn and Evanescence. Was it for a show, a specific show, or their tour?
That was for a tour. Yeah, that one. That was pretty exciting. Again, getting an email from Korn's management. I don't know why. I haven't really been pranked a lot in my life, but I don't know why I keep thinking that these things aren't real. But that was another one where I thought, is this real? That was exciting. I have worked with quite a lot of bands now, not so many, internationally famous ones, but I've created well over 100 album covers over the years. And it's something that I just love doing because I love music so much and I've been in bands. I feel like I understand the world and I find it really easy to work with musicians, bands, artists, something that I love to do and will hopefully continue doing, and hopefully, fingers crossed, keep working with some of these amazing international bands.
I hope you get to go as far as you possibly can. Do you ever attach music to your NFTs?
I do, yes. Some of it is music I have created. I don't want to call it a band. I have a studio music project.
I'd call it a band. I listened to your whole album.
Oh, did you?
Hell yeah, man.
Thank you. That's cool. All right, we can call it a band, but we've never played live. A mate of mine, Jeff, and myself create a lot of instrumental music together. And then I have another friend whose name is Peter Reggie Bowman, who is a producer, owns his own studio. And I've done a bunch of stuff with him as far as scoring stuff for my NFTs as well. So something that I want to do more of is include music as part of the package, if you like.
Your band, not band. Its name is the Sudden State. What is it called again?
No Sudden Moves.
No Sudden Moves. That's right. I listened to. I think there were 12 songs.
10 currently available on Spotify.
That's right.
So we did an album that had 8 tracks, and then we've got another couple of singles.
I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh,
I'm trying to.
Really appreciate it.
I was trying to figure out what. Again, I'm sure artists don't like this, but like what it may sound like, especially because I'm just going to have to describe it. I knew I was going to talk about it. To me, it sounds like, for some reason in my brain, what comes in my brain is like a Quentin Tarantino movie mixed with like Radiohead without lyrics.
Oh, I like that. I have got absolutely no problem with that description. That's really cool.
Specifically the movie True Romance. I don't know why that like comes in there, but it's got like these soothing sounds, but they're also kind of menacing at certain points, and it's very atmospheric, but also I feel like has a purpose, like it's going somewhere.
Yeah, That's cool. Again, I love that, and that's definitely
you can steal that description, by the way.
Thank you. I may just do that. It's really cool. There's definitely that intention in what we do. So you use some of the words that we used when we were talking about doing this project. Is atmospheric, almost like soundtrack, kind of scores, if you like. The initial idea and the first album that we created came about because I had an idea for an exhibition, actually. So I had imagery that I wanted to create soundtracks for, and Jeff and I did that, and that's what became the album. So each of the 8 tracks on our album were based around an image, and that's how they started out life. So it's a bit of a different way of going about it. And then I did hold an exhibition where you could come along and check out the images printed out, and also underneath the image was an iPod stuck to the wall, and you could listen to the song that was attached to the image.
Is there anywhere somebody can do that online that's listening?
No.
You can get on it, bro.
Yeah, I know, right? If you download the album off Bandcamp, which is free to download, each track does come with its specific artwork on that particular platform.
So again, those listening, download the No Sudden Moves album on Bandcamp, and you can see the corresponding images with the song.
You can.
You better believe I'm going to be doing that later tonight.
Yeah, so it's free to download. It just says on Bandcamp, it says name your price. So if you put in $0, which we encourage people to do, we're happy to give it away. Then you can download it and you'll see all the pieces. The other thing too is we released a vinyl of that album, and inside the gatefold vinyl is all of the pieces of art as well. And I'm really proud of that vinyl. It came up a treat.
There are a lot of people listening and in these groups that collect vinyls. So again, if you're listening, grab that vinyl, look at the images with the corresponding songs.
Absolutely. I'd love to send a few more out. That'd be great.
So I've talked to a lot of digital artists. Well, it's been about 50-50 digital and what is it? I'm going to call it analog artists.
Yep, that's fair.
I think this is only stated by people that don't do art at all, but some people say that it's almost not real unless it's physical. And I don't necessarily. I'm sure you've heard something of this nature in your tenure. I'm just more curious on what you think the difference in the process is, and you may get something different out of doing digital art that somebody does with analog art, and you may get the same things. I just wanted to get you to touch on the subject in general.
Yeah, for sure. And I do hear this a lot, and it's something that's come up a lot through the whole NFT movement as well, is that whole value of the digital art as opposed to, fine art and the traditional art scene.
They're both fine art, in my opinion, my friend.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I appreciate hearing that from you. For me personally, I do love a physical product as well. So there is something really nice about holding something in your hand or being able to appreciate it in person. So I do come from that background. I studied photography, but I also, in university, I did printmaking. So I love, printing things out and being able to hold them and look at them. So I do have that side to me, but I have, as you've heard, fallen deeply into the rabbit hole of digital art as well. For me, the digital is I'm using a different tool. So instead of carving a piece of lino and inking it and printing it on a piece of paper, I'm using my camera, importing a photo into my computer and using the tools that I have to create something visual that wasn't there before. So I don't see, personally, I understand why people think that they are two very different things. But for me as a creative, I am creating a visual that is either something that I've thought of or starting from a point of just purely being creative, something that wasn't there now creating something that is there, whether it's a physical thing or a digital thing. So I don't feel, for me, there is a great deal of difference. There's the aspect of not getting your hands dirty when you're printing or painting, but I really, really enjoy the process of being able to take something from nothing, make something from nothing, taking a photo, manipulating it into something else, or even just sitting there with a blank document in Photoshop and creating something from nothing. The whole process is something that I can't help but want to do. That makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I appreciate you even answering the question. So I kind of want to talk about your Milan stuff. You want to touch on Milan? All I saw was that you had an exhibit in Milan. And in Milan, Italy, you had one of your pieces of art displayed on an entire building.
Yeah.
How fucking wild is that, bro?
Just crazy. I actually had a similar experience back here in Melbourne, in the heart of Melbourne City. I had, there's a really famous building in our city here called the Rialto Tower. And it's a bit of a landmark. And I had a massive wall on the ground floor of the Rialto Tower, a massive window, actually, a window display of my art as well. And it's just surreal seeing your art on a large scale in a really public way is something that I don't think I never envisaged. So it wasn't something that I set out to do, but when you see it and can experience it in that way, it's just incredible. So I've had my art now displayed in Times Square in New York, in a gallery in Milan, on the side of a building in Milan, in a window display in Melbourne. I've currently got a piece in a exhibition in Venice, Italy as well now. So I've had some massive displays actually on a massive screen in China as well. I was on a massive monolith display in Miami for Art Basel in Miami last year too. So it's just been mind-blowing seeing my digital work displayed on large scale in all of these different places all around the world. I don't really know how to come to terms with it, but I just love seeing it, obviously.
Just accept it, I guess, is all you can do.
I guess you do. Just have to accept it. It's amazing. I still pinch myself every time someone asks for me to be part of an exhibition like that. I won't get used to it, but I absolutely love doing it, and I will never stop creating. So, hopefully those opportunities keep coming.
I think it's a good thing that you won't stop pinching yourself, because it means you'll keep working and keep appreciating it. I think it's hilarious that you can see small little Rupert on your phone and also on the side of a building. And then Rupert is getting around to all over the world.
Yeah. Yep. He's definitely seen some miles now, the little man.
Yeah, sorry, I keep calling him Rupert. I'll stop.
No, I'm totally okay with you calling him Rupert.
I'm trying to get it in your brain so that next time I hear you speak, if I do on some other interview, you're going to accidentally call him Rupert. And then I'll just have this moment of like, yes. Yes, it's in his brain. Alrighty, last couple. So I'm sure you've heard this before. Again, maybe an annoying question, but your work obviously gets associated with the Joy Division album cover.
Yes, it does.
And since since we don't know how you created, and I know how they created the album cover, I'm going to say it's a completely different process. For those listening, because it was a big question online, the Joy Division album cover is a radio frequency. Is a picture of a radio frequency from a star, pretty much. That I forget the lead singer's name. Super talented guy, super great band. He pretty much just took it right out of an encyclopedia and they slapped it on their album. But so again, we can't really talk about it because that's not what you did. But if I didn't address it, I think my listeners would hate me. So you can, if you want, touch on how annoying I'm sure it is that on a daily basis, people judge your work to a 40-year-old album.
I actually don't get annoyed at all. So mine is a very different process. I will say that, just straight out. And you could already tell that from the brief little thing that I told you before about the fact that it starts out as a photo. Very different process. I can 100% see why people say it and ask all the time about the Joy Division influence, and it does not bother me one bit. People can still keep saying it and asking it, and I'll just say, yes, it does look like it. So one of the things that I loved about when I discovered this little process that I have, my little secret sauce for these lines, one of the things that I loved is the fact that it resembled that kind of sound wave kind of look. So there was that thing in my mind that I had something that could look like a landscape, but also looked like sound, a visualization of sound in some small way. And that's something that really, really appealed to me as a music lover and music player myself. So there's definitely a correlation there, and it doesn't bother me one bit.
You know what your art really reminds me of? And this is my own personal thing, and I have to throw it in there.
Please do.
To me, it almost looks like string theory visualized.
Oh, yeah. Funnily enough, I have heard that one before too. So you're not the first to say that.
God damn it. So saying that, we just, obviously that album, there's something about these lines that really resonates with people.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest. There is one recurring comment other than the Joy Division one that I get is that when the lines interact with the digital, with a screen, like let's say your laptop screen or your phone screen, that you get this thing that I call scroll flicker. So you get this sort of flickering effect when you move the image a little bit when you're scrolling. So that's something that jumps out at people. I don't know that that's why they love the lines, but that's something within this style of art that catches the eye, if you like. So that there's one thing to take away from it. But yeah, I don't know what it is about those lines that's so striking. It perhaps because it can be quite minimalistic, but there's a real familiarity and a real style to it that is eye-catching and eye-pleasing, if you like.
There's got to be some combination of, like you said, the familiarity. I'm very bad with words. God knows why I'm doing a podcast. The familiarity of the lines, but also your guy. Just the combination of them together is just it's something you can't quite pinpoint, but it obviously is extremely popular and resonates with a ton of people. They just immediately go, wow.
Yeah, it's cool. And I went, wow, when I just kind of discovered it and started, working with it. Obviously, it was something that was appealing to my eye, and it's amazing and really cool to me that there are a bunch of people that felt that same way, or feel that same way when they see it as when I started creating these. It's very validating, if you like.
All right, last two questions, and these are the two questions I ask every guest.
Cool.
First one, do you collect anything of your own? So specifically, this podcast is, I guess, geared towards obviously people that like art and Tool and collectors. Somewhere out there is a person who your poster is called their Grail. It's signed by Tool. It's their hometown. They went to the show. Literally, it's their favorite thing in the world. It's their Grail, their peak of collection. So my question is do you collect anything of? It could be anything. Do you collect anything, and do you have something where you're like, I can't wait to get my hands on one of those, whether it's an NFT or something physical?
Gotcha. And yes, is the short answer. I do collect. I collect vinyl. I do collect NFTs. Since I have got into that world, it's become a passion to support other artists and collect their work as well. And I do like to have art up in my house from other artists as well. So definitely a collector. Oh, and even back in the day as a kid, I collected basketball cards, NBA basketball cards as well. So I do have that bug. I definitely do like to collect things, and I'm a bit of a completist when it comes to favourite bands. I do want to have all of the vinyls of my favourite bands.
So is there like a vinyl out there that is the holy grail of all vinyls for you?
Probably, yeah, there would be a few. I did just buy the Tool Fear Inoculum box set, which just came out. So that was one when I saw that it was coming out that I felt like I just had to have. So that's now in my collection, which I'm very pleased about. There's some Soundgarden that I'm missing as far as vinyl goes. I've got all of Radiohead's catalogue now on vinyl, which I'm very pleased about.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, look, there would be a bunch. I'm struggling to think now off the top of my head. But
Fair enough.
As I said, I'm a completist. So with my favourite bands, I kind of want to have all of their vinyl.
Last big question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Tool song?
Oh, wow. I don't know if this is weird or not. I don't know how you go with answers to questions like that. But
So-
I struggle to pick one song.
Yeah, no, there's there. So what I usually ask when that answer is what's the first one that comes to your mind?
The very first one that just popped into my mind then is Stinkfist, and I don't know why that just popped into my mind, but it's definitely one that was pretty huge for me when I first started getting into Tool. I love the new album.
Me too, man.
I've really, really kind of got into the new album, and hence desperately wanting to have it on vinyl and experience it on vinyl. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really hard one. Maybe Invincible off the new album. Maybe.
No, it's my current favorite song from them at the moment.
There you go.
That's the third thing. That's the third thing we have in common, my friend.
Man, we're hitting all the marks today.
Yeah, I think
drummers and photographers. I love it.
I think we just became best friends.
We might have. Yeah, right during this podcast. I love it.
Nate Hill, man, I am so grateful you came on the show.
Really appreciate you asking me and having me. It's been fun.
Do me a favor. Tell everybody listening where they can find, your NFTs, where they can find your website and your band, and give the whole plug rundown if you don't mind.
No worries at all. Well, on Instagram, my username is Nate Hill, just one word, Nate Hill. Underneath it, I have a landing page in my bio, and that will take you to all sorts of different places. Like Nifty Gateway is one of the major platforms where I have sold a bunch of NFTs. You can find me there. My band, as we discussed, is called No Sudden Moves, and you can find us on Bandcamp and all the various streaming platforms that are out there, and iTunes and wherever you like. Our album is out, and we do have a single out with a second single actually about to come out in about a week or two. Yeah, probably Instagram is the best place to start with me, and then you can sort of go through the bio and find me elsewhere. My website is natehillphotography.com.au. It holds a lot more of my photography as opposed to Instagram holds a lot more of my digital art. You will find crossover, but there is a bit of difference between those two things. I think that's...
Yeah, go to his Instagram and look at his, like I said, under the name, everybody knows it. There's like
the link. There's a link tree there.
Yeah, the link tree. That's what it's called. So again, Nate Hill, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a total pleasure.
Let's Tool is touring in Europe right now. Those who listen to the show know that I've been releasing almost daily episodes about each poster that drops. And so thank you. The response to those have been very good. I'll continue to do them if you continue to listen. We have a lot of cool episodes coming up. Camille Rose Garcia, who did the Napa poster, going to be on the show soon. Got a lot of cool people coming up. So keep listening. Spiral out.